Bratcher, and I am a certified speaker, coach, and trainer with the John Maxwell team, as well as a blogger and a newspaper columnist. For more information about me and availability for your next event, you can certainly check me out at davebratcher.com. There are very few people in life that we meet that make such an impact as the person that you're about to meet did on my life. I met Steve Holt during a Westar leadership training program, and he was one of the speakers, and all I can say is, wow. He is an expert when it comes to social media, when it comes to engaging customers, and I can't believe that I've got an opportunity today to visit with him. Steve's been speaking, teaching, coaching for over a decade and is a skilled communicator. He's also the author of 3 books, The Google Game Plan, The Facebook Guide for Small Business, and Twitter for Business. Learn more about Steve's company and Steve Holt Consulting at steveholt.com. What an honor it is to have Steve here with me today. What we're going to talk about today is the power of promoting others. He's going to help us understand how to socially engage and not simply be socially awkward. Steve, as you travel around the country speaking, you commonly refer to the 10-to-1 rule. What exactly are you talking about?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for those glowing comments, Dave. I really appreciate it. You are an excellent speaker in your own right, and I think for those of you looking for a speaker, you definitely need to check out Dave. So I just want to thank you for doing this with me today. The 10-to-1 rule is really simple. Before you can talk about yourself, you have to talk about other people and other things aside from you 10 times. It's real simple. You simply look at your Facebook page, your Twitter account, whatever, and have a piece of paper. Write on one side of the piece of paper the number of times you talk about yourself, and on the other side the number of times you talk about somebody else. Add them up. It's real simple, and it's really easy to keep track of, and I think it's important that you think about that often so that you don't fall into the trap of talking about yourself too much.
I think we've certainly fallen into that trap before, Steve, and I can appreciate that. Oftentimes we think, you know, if we don't toot our own horn, who's going to toot it? And that's certainly not the case, and that's a great way to really do an inventory, if you will, of your social media outlets and how often you're talking about yourself versus talking about others. You know, as a social media expert, some of the things you've seen people doing wrong with their social media strategy, what would some of those things be, and how could we best avoid them?
Well, one of the main things that I see businesses in particular do that is really bad is that they try to use their social media channels for hard selling. In my opinion, one of the best ways for you to get business is to friend somebody, is to become an actual friend or a colleague to somebody who may not need whatever you have right now. But what's going to happen later on down the line is when they do need whatever it is that you sell, you're the person that they'll think of. Well, the only way to get to that point is to concentrate on building relationships. If you concentrate on building relationships, then when it comes time for them to do business, they're going to remember you. And so that's one of the biggest mistakes I see businesses make, is trying to sell, sell, sell constantly. And it just doesn't work.
You know, it's refreshing to hear the social media guy talk about how important relationships are, because I think no matter what the technology is that we're interfacing with people, at the end of the day, whatever the product is, it's people doing business with people. Whatever the communication medium is, it's still one person interacting with another. You know, Steve, I want to shift and talk about the word that gets a lot of press today, and that's a word of collaboration. It's thrown around all the time, but what's an example of how this applies in trying to build your brand in a social media environment?
Well, everyone likes to be heard. In fact, that's one of the reasons why social media is so powerful, is because it gives literally anyone a voice to where they can be, call them publishers, call them writers, call them speakers. It gives them a chance to tell the world what they think. And so, kind of going back to the previous point, one of the best things that you can do for your customers is not sitting there and sell, 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 preach, 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 but actually ask them what they think. And there's so many social media tools out there that allow you to literally collaborate with other people, to seek input, to both contribute to something that you're creating. And it's fantastic, especially for your customers. If your customers feel like this business is not trying to just sell something to me, they actually care what I think and how I feel, that is incredibly powerful, especially for businesses. And so that's one way you can make not just a connection with somebody, but a meaningful, deep connection.
You know, it's so interesting that you talk about these things as it relates to social media. You know, it's common sense in a real life retail environment to treat customers that way. But for some reason, when we get into the social media realm, we think that those old rules don't apply to the new media. And as you know, they certainly do. Now, we've talked about how folks can get it wrong and how businesses can get it wrong, but what's an example of a company that's getting it right?
Well, one of my favorite cookies is an Oreo. I'm sure there are a lot of Oreo fans out there, and I use this as an example of a very, very large brand. They're very, very large. They have millions of people on Facebook, for example, who follow them. One of the things that they do is they keep it fun. Everything that they do on their Facebook page, for example, you can go check it out, anything but fun. They don't try to sell you Oreos. What Oreo wants you to do on their website is they want you to take a pictures of you enjoying Oreos or doing something with Oreos. And people who love Oreo cookies, they just really like Oreo cookies. And if you go check out their picture galleries, it's not pictures that they're posting. They have hundreds of thousands of pictures that their customers have posted. That's one example. Here's another example. There's a shoe company that is out there that their customers absolutely love their shoes. And so what they have done is once a week, they pick a picture that one of their customers has uploaded of their shoes, and they feature them on their profile picture. So that Dave Bratcher, if you send a picture in of how much you love this company's shoes, they may take your picture and call you the fan of the week, and then upload you onto their page and brag on you just for being a loyal customer. Then you get to feel good about yourself. Once again, they're not talking about themselves, they're talking about you, which is that 10-to-1 rule. Both Oreo and the shoe company, that's what they do. They never talk about themselves. They want you to talk about yourself. And in that whole process, you end up talking about them, and they get mileage out of that. I mean, those are great examples of how a company can do it.
Wow, that's powerful, and I had no idea, certainly as somebody that loves Oreos. But as you were talking, I was reminded, my adult life, most of it has been spent in the area of sales. And we always tell people that there's nothing better than a referral. And this is exactly what these two companies that you just highlighted are doing. They're getting a third-party endorsement from their customer about how awesome they are. And we all know that if somebody else can say those things, that just increases the volume of how impactful that message and that brand is. One last thing today, Steve, and that is customers are afraid oftentimes to open themselves up, to let their customers tell their story because it might not always be positive. What have you found as it relates to social media and how customer service has improved because of it?
Well, I could give you example after example of companies who have embraced this and who have really shined because, but let me just give you a real good example. If somebody comes into your store and they're standing across the counter from you and they're mad, you did something wrong, an employee did something wrong, the product was not what they wanted, they're just not happy, and they're just mad. Well, the only people who are going to know about that are those who are in the room right then, and then perhaps anybody that they tell that they were upset, which is really bad in and of itself. But the audience is fairly small. But when you get into social media, if somebody posts on your wall and you happen to have 10,000 fans, 10,000 fans have the potential of seeing them upset by posting on your wall. So that's what scares a lot of companies, is that I'm opening myself up to not just that one person seeing that they're mad, but a whole bunch of people. Now, I counter that argument by saying this. If you were to solve that person's problem across the counter from you and make them happy, probably not going to go tell a bunch of people. They may tell some, but nobody's going to know about it but you and that person and maybe a few others. If you solve it in social media and you solve it publicly, you admit that you're wrong, you admit that you messed up, you apologize, and you make it right, and it's all public, then that's going to live on those social media channels for quite a while. And you might even have the potential of turning that person into a fan who then could brag about you and how you solved their problem to all of their friends on social media. So the impact is so much, the potential is much bigger. And I've always been a huge advocate of openness and honesty. If you're open and you're honest and you admit your faults to people, then that goes a lot farther than if you try to cover up and hide stuff that you feel bad about.
Once again, a situation where we've always known that, and because of social media and its rise and its prevalence in our society today, that doesn't allow us to forget those foundational principles that we all know and that we all work to hold true to. I think I'm reminded, as you were talking about that, an experience I had with Bass Pro Shops. They exchanged a gift card that was expired, and based on the fine print on the back of the card, they didn't have to do that, and I knew that. But they gladly fixed it. They gladly gave me a new one, and I went immediately to social media to brag on that company. Well, what do you know? On Twitter, it was retweeted. On Facebook, it was shared again by Bass Pro Shops. And so they value customer feedback, and they certainly value opportunities that they can take a wrong and make it a right. Steve, gosh, what a great time we've had today together. I can't say thank you enough. And those of you that want to, those folks that are watching that want to connect with Steve Holt and what you do, what's the best way they could do that, Steve?
Well, I'm on all the social media networks, but the best way to find me is at steveholt.com. You'll see buttons there for my Facebook page, YouTube channel, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm on all those networks. And so the best way to do it is go to steveholt.com, check out all those buttons there, connect with me however you want.
Excellent. And one final thing that I'll say is Steve writes a great blog. It's updated regularly, and he's always reading and finding the next best thing that's out there for companies and ways that they connect with customers. I'm Dave Bratcher, and until next time, remember two important things. Number one, keep it conversational. Number two, always shine your light brighter on others than you do yourself. And always remember, leadership takes effort, and it requires you to be engaged with those you are leading. Thanks for joining us today.